Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you, of course, from the Extreme Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I am from the Great Midwest RDV, and tonight's movie is Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny. We're going to talk about the good and the bad of it. This is one of those movies that's getting a lot of hate or a lot of love. It seems to be a binary decision, one way or the other. And RDV, I got to tell you, when I went and saw this film, it was not the biggest of houses, if you know what I'm saying. So I was curious from you in the Midwest if you went like last night or opening night or
Oh,
today, what the actual theater experience for Indiana Jones 5 was. Because
for
I'll be
me,
honest with you, I think this movie's horrible on a lot of levels, and I only liked a couple of things they tried doing, and I'm trying very hard not to totally go off on it because we don't like to do that here in the Extreme Movie Show. We like to talk about what works and doesn't. So I'm curious about what your initial take.
for me, I avoid all of the young kids, all the crowds. I'm an old man at 38. I like to go at like noon showings,
Hmm.
so I'll go during the week. But I actually saw it on a Saturday at 12:45, which I know only people are going to see movies at that time are senior citizens, and so I know it's not going to be crowded. Um, because I did. That's the one thing I hate watching movies when people start chewing popcorn or rappers, all this stuff, or little kids coming along and they're coughing, or they're just talking during the movie. I
Hmm.
hate that crap. I prefer the home experience now. I'll be actually capable of that now. But anyway, there was quite about a handful of people in there with me watching it. For me, I knew what I was going into with watching this. I knew there was going to be Indy. He's older. He's going to be working with a girl. And for me, I actually liked it more than I thought I was going to like it.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I thought I was actually going to hate it because I would the talks about how I kept saying like, oh, this girl's going to take over the movie. She's going to be the next Indiana Jones. That's false. She's not going to be the next Indiana Jones. This is the last for Indiana Jones. They're not doing any more indie movies. The franchise is done with this stuff. Uh, the girl pretty much was almost like a Catwoman, and to me it makes sense. She's not a love interest, but she's antagonistic throughout the whole movie. She's spoiled. She's unlikable. Uh, and that's kind of a point of her character. Her dad is supposed to be uh Bemis, or what was his name? What was his? Well, Base Basil was her dad. Played by the guy who played Arnold Zola in the Marvel movies, Captain America, Winter Soldier.
Hmm.
Same actor. Uh, yeah. So her character was pretty much. Last time Indy saw her was when she was 9 years old. Her dad was going obsessed because he wanted to find the other half of the dial, and just from that we don't really know what happened to her. All we know is that what we're told is that basically that she somehow found a way. I guess grew up with no parents after that because her dad was the last person. He passed away or committed suicide. I don't know, but she got into the life of crime. She got into that stuff as far as and she became obsessed with archaeology, selling stuff, and just whatever. That's not important. Because uh, anyway, going back to the whole indie Basil thing, they're the first like good 20 minutes of the movie. And I love the opening. The opening where we have Indy back is supposed to younger. It's supposed to be back when he's younger. Uh,
What'd you think of the de aging?
the de aging I thought was pretty good until the scene where you see him getting out of the lake and you see his back and you see him walking like an old man.
Right.
Yeah, that's part I could see. There were some scenes where you see when he turned, you could see some of the CG. So there was some flaws with it, not a lot though. The only thing you can't hide was as and I kept saying like, why did they not have a body double for him? You
They
know,
do, and that's one of the biggest complaints I have about this movie, besides the horrible writing, which is up front with number one, is while everyone's talking about this opening 20-minute scene or so, like you said, it kind of reminds you of an Indiana Jones. Something's happening, and they're on the train, which is always romantic in a way, and stuff's going on, and so immediately you're like, okay, let's see how this goes. But then it's at night, so when they go up top and do the usual on top of the train stuff that we've seen since at least North by Northwest or Silver Streak or whatever, it wasn't very creative at all. It was weird because while his face was de-aged, it was almost like too smooth, and it didn't like move with him. It was almost like a deep fake, and also his voice. They kept his voice, if you noticed, as the older, and like threw me off because you've got this younger 40-something
Yes.
looking Indiana Jones, and then they're using the older voice. And then to your point about not having a body double for some of the scenes, you can clearly tell. Like say in the horse chasing scene there too, when it's turning around and you look at the face, that it's not him at all, and it's. I thought the CGI and overall look of this film was by far the worst of all of them put together. I mean, I know there's people that love hate Temple of Doom. I know there's people that don't think much of Crystal Skull, but I think it's interesting because to me, I was going, well, it's got to be better than the Crystal Skull. And the look of this film is atrocious because of the CGI. I'm not even going to talk about the boring action scenes yet, but it's at night, so it's like Godzilla where you can't really see anything. And so I appreciate that they had a pretty long opening gambit, right? But for me, I
Mhm.
just thought it fell flat, and that's when I started to go, "Uh-oh."
For me, Temple of Doom is somewhat boring to me. Like the whole indie, oh, he's being hypnotized and all that stuff. The whole I just can't. I watched it once. I could not sit through and watch it again. The only parts I like watching is the part where they're on the minecart, the chase towards the end,
Mhm.
the water swimming, and like that's to me is the probably the best part of Temple of Doom. I mean, I remember the monkey brains and the bugs, and then they're in the trap with the
Yeah,
boy. Like,
yeah,
a shotgun's awesome when they give the lines, but I mean, like, but that movie has a lot of flaws for being, that's why I've always considered the weakest of the three. Like when Raiders, Crusade, and then Temple of Doom.
mhm.
This movie with its flaws, I had fun with it. I mean, it's a nice little button at the end, especially at the end, how they wrap it up. Give him a nice send off. He's reunited with his wife.
Yeah,
That,
I
yeah. So
ah,
that's why I mean, Crystal Skull. It was just like Crystal Skull suffered with the same threat with the CG problems too as well.
agreed, it looked horrible.
And so this one also had a lot of the cast coming back as far as you had John Rhys Davies came back, reprised his role. And you can see now he's playing an older man. He's playing his own age. So when you see him, he actually looks old. But I love what he says. Like, he says, like, Indy, I want to go with you. It's like, I miss the adventure. I don't know what's going to happen next. I miss the sand. I miss the sand. I miss the sea. It's been a
Yeah,
while. He's
yeah, because
been
because he's
living in
always
Europe.
got that really strong resonant voice, right? And so
Yes.
when he delivers lines like that, you're like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And just when you start getting a little excited, you're like then they go and shit on it, making him look like an idiot old man crossing the street, almost getting hit by a car. I mean, I wanna go back to Helena Shaw, the goddaughter here, because
Yeah.
she's an absolutely horrible human being. Nothing she says or does is fun, cute, witty, charming, smart. Um, she's horrible. She basically almost gets Indy killed early on. This is how we meet her. She's a show off in his class. And Indy is, of course, presented in like 1968 or whatever it is, the late 60s,
She was
as
only
this
there at
old
the
crotchety old man.
Sweet Talk
No,
'em,
she's a
yes.
horrible human being. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
we get in the kitchen, him waking up and all that to loud music and looking at the divorce papers or whatever with a picture of Marion on the counter.
Oh,
So
yeah. They
they've
don't.
stripped everything from him. They've made him look like he's an old fool who can't do anything. His only line to everybody when he goes to get his retirement was, "Thank you all for putting up with me." That is so feeble. Um, at least
It's
at least he Harrison Ford, I think, felt like he cared about this character, unlike Han Solo, let's say, and what
so.
he chose to
I
do
I
with
want
that.
to.
But the point I was going to make with all that is
Yeah.
we go about an hour into the film with these characters getting introduced. We understand Marion's not with it. We wonder what's going on, and so we grow to kind of hate her. I think, at least because I did. And Andy can't do a damn thing. She does everything, and it's
Uh.
embarrassing because halfway through, once we get what I call the boat speech, that's when you go, okay. If you wanted to make us like her for some reason, you haven't done it, and whatever the ending is going to be, which we'll get to shortly, I'm like, you guys are not setting this up for us to enjoy it at all. It
Well.
was it was embarrassing to watch. I felt like it was just a movie slapped together with the Indiana Jones name on it. It was not familiar at all.
So Indiana Jones saved her multiple times, and she saved him. It was going back and forth, especially during the chase scene. We saw that. Even with the bad guys towards the end.
Because she
So
stole from him first, left him to die.
yeah, it's you ever watch a
That,
femme?
that's the first interaction we have with her.
She's supposed to be a femme fatale, basically
I
character.
she's not sexy at all.
No, she's not
That's what a
sexy.
femme
No,
fatale
no,
is.
no. But her character is supposed to be what she has no morals. That's the play on. She has her own little friend, basically, who's also a thief. As it keeps pointing out, throughout the movie though, um, is that you? It's like, what happened to you? You used to be a sweet little 9-year-old girl, like, and you become this. And as far as Indy being old, portrayed old in this, yes, he's supposed to be old, kind of a guy who basically drinks a little bit. You see when he gets up, he drinks a little bit. Marion's not there. This is a takes place, but basically what we learn eventually towards the end is that the reason Indy is after he's retiring, the age and stuff, why he's so depressed is because Miriam, their marriage kind of splintered when, I guess, because his son went off to war.
Hmm.
Despite him, Mud, and then Mud died in Vietnam, and so their marriage hasn't been like the marriage kind of fell apart. That's why he's depicted as being so old. He doesn't want to go on the venture, but he's forced to because the stupid girl takes the after Dow, and now it's Nazis. Even she's arrogant. She doesn't listen to him. Gets herself back in the corner when he has to save her, and then she in turn she saves him. As I said, I thought it was actually pretty decent than what it could have
Yeah,
been.
and it's surprising because, like, when I say about halfway through on the boat speech, when we finally understand what these emotional anchors are supposed to be and what they're gearing towards, um, she says something to him to the effect of, like, "Well, what would you do if you had the dial up to destiny, which supposedly can take you back in time? Would you go see Archimedes? Would you go do this?" And he's like, "No, I'd go back and tell my son to not enlist because I know he would die." And if they just paused there and let the weight of that hang in the air, I'd be like, why didn't they kind of shift that early on so we could let her as a brand new character grow into somebody that we can see as being resourceful and caring rather than the bitch she is, because that's flat out what she is. She's unlikable, and it makes you not have fun with the movie, in my opinion.
And
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 unfortunately, she makes some smart comment. And then there's another one too, where I popped a little bit when they're going looking for that other artifact, and they meet up with a fisherman he knew, and it's Antonio Banderas who
I
brings
know,
the whole
right?
shit. I love his look. He's got this great shot of energy in him. It's perfect. Whatever happens, happens there. But then at the end, he looks like an idiot or whatever. And then they finally manage to escape thanks to her, allegedly. And she's sitting there laughing and cackling. And he's like, "My old friend was just murdered." And she's just kind of like, she
Yeah,
goes, "Sorry." And that's
she's a
it.
heartless, yeah, and she's a
So again,
heartless
so I
bitch.
don't. That's where I'm finding difficulty with
Yeah,
people who are saying they're enjoying it up to this point. There's nothing he's done I thought that's been enjoyable, and the action scenes have been poor with the CGI, and she's unlikable. So up to this point, what is it that you've been liking? Is what I'm
what I've been
trying to
liking,
understand.
what I liked is the train fight at the very beginning, the whole
Okay,
fight on the train. I'm more lenient on the CG than you are as far as
that
that
is
stuff.
correct.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, we both love
I,
the practical effects. I
yeah,
agree, but
yeah.
yeah,
So I love the whole train scene. I mean, I love the fact when he's fighting against one of the guys on the train, uh, or actually no, yeah, the guy ends up that's Man Mickelson comes on there. He's fighting with him because he's got the medallion, and then he gets knocked out by one of those on the side on the railroads. They always have those posts.
yeah.
The post knocks him out. I'm thinking like,
That's right. That silver streak.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, then the other part is a high action. It's basically high action kind of indie in the beginning. As far as I want to say Last Crusade a little bit in a sense. His Indy's being held. He broke into this place to steal this artifact.
Mhm.
Because apparently they had the Spear of Destiny, is rumored. So he broke into this. Posing a German officer goes in there in the castle, ends up being discovered. They're gonna hang him, and then the Americans start bombing the place, and then a bomb falls through like the ceiling. No, this is typical indie humor though. The bomb falls through but doesn't explode. And so all the Germans gonna stand there, and then he barely manages to get himself free. I mean, I love the whole escape scene in the very beginning. I mean, uh, and then I also love, like I said, I love the car chase. They're on the little carts, back and forth. You know,
Wow,
yeah,
that was the worst to me.
I love that. I love that too. Um, I thought I was pretty well. Now, will this hold up to the Raiders or even Last Crusade? No. Temple Doom, possibly. Because Temple Doom was really, really bad in my opinion. Now, I know some people love Temple Doom because in the very beginning there is a Star Wars reference and all that crap. But I mean, I think this is way better though than the aliens in the Kingdom of Crystal Skull. So
Yeah, yeah, this is surprising me because after a few
yeah,
years, this is
yeah.
where it really far apart. To me, the whole idea here, of course, is that you get the Dial of Destiny, you can go back in time and do things right. Of course, it's all an allegory, and of course, Mads Mikkelsen is wasted in here despite his on-screen presence. He comes across pretty much as a wuss or a guy that wants to, help Hitler out or
And
possibly
that's
replace him. They don't even really give him a backstory. It's so paper thin, and his goons are a joke.
he's
Um,
a scientist that works for Hitler, and he
you got
basically.
Mads in there. He could have said, "No, I'm going to be Hitler," or something, and
Yeah,
just was
and
like, "Yeah,
that's
you
so
bastard,"
basically he wanted the dial for himself because he wanted to go back and kill Hitler because he said Hitler lit a fire but he didn't know how to maintain it. I will keep the Hitler lost the war. I'll win the war. So he
Yeah,
wanted to
it
go. His whole
just
dream was to go back, but of course when he uses the dial, it opens it back to basically when Achilles, what's
Archimedes.
Archimedes? Yeah, sorry, Archimedes when the Romans were invading. So and so it all ties in together as why how did Archimedes his grave? Why do you have a watch? Where do you get this from? How did this is so sophisticated? It's because they've already been there. Because time
Yeah, they actually, spoiler alert, go back in time,
and
and Indiana Jones is shot in the heart. By the way, very clearly established. And
but
so it's insulting enough that they actually went back in time. You can say what
it,
you want about aliens or the kids in Temple of Doom, the stuff that people think about. At least in Temple, there's a threat of something dark going on.
well to me it
So in
looked like he got
here,
shot above. He got shot in the shoulder.
yeah, it looked like it was in the heart to me. I may be wrong, but the point is he's shot near the heart, let's say, and incapacitated because, of course, Indiana's in effect everything. And oh, by the way, when he cracks the whip at the auction, where he's trying to break it up and she ignores him and all that, and everybody pulls their gun on him, like in a reverse Indiana Raiders one, where he pulls the gun out and the one saber wielding guy. That's not funny, or that's tired,
I
and all
think
the
that I
little
think that was the problem is that I think that did you see the trailer first with that? Did you?
no,
Okay, because for me, I saw that in the trailer. I was like, oh my gosh, they actually took something from the trailer, put it in the movie. Because
I
usually they
know.
don't do that.
Well, with the amount of reshoots this has gone through, it's obviously pushed
Yeah.
the budget to around 300, not including all the other stuff for it.
But
So,
I
um,
do like the fact that whenever Indy knows he's old in the movie, and he even acknowledges the movie acknowledges that Indy is old. And according to the actual Indy's and all stuff, so Indiana Jones, his age would be he'd be in his 70s. He'd be like 70 years old, right around there.
but you don't make them appear feeble. You make them, you
Uh,
give them limited things to do, and you structure the story around that way so we can get invested by him. Because again, he's supposed to be the center of this movie. And let's be honest, even though
uh,
we're disagreeing on almost everything with this film, she is the center of the movie. She is the movie. It's her movie. Indiana just happens to be along for the ride. If he can keep up. I mean, that's what's insulting about it. And at the end, he just basically gives the "I want to die here in peace" speech because I have nothing to live for. And so part of you wants to go, okay, I respect that, I understand it, and all that. Because hey, frankly, for 2 hours plus in a boring movie, he's
but he
had nothing
can't,
to
so
live
she
for.
pulls a Marion and knocks him out.
Yeah, she knocks him out and against his will takes him back to the future.
As
So the short round replacement guy, who's Muslim and a drinker, by the way, for all you European fans, go figure out why they put that in, or maybe thinking that was funny. Um, he wakes up, she's sitting there having some coffee, and he's like, "Why'd you bring me back?" Whatever. And pops Marion and this drifter kid, who's also a thief, by the way. And she's like, "I'm putting groceries up," and he's like, "No, what are you really doing here?" And it's nice to see her. Don't get me wrong. And then that's kind of how the movie ends. Like he has something to live for, so therefore it's okay. And I just thought, based off of how horrible they set this up by not allowing us to like or enjoy anything from the majority of the movie, to throw that in the end was a complete slap in the face. And this is where like you and I totally depart on it. So our concerns about CGI and the action scenes, whether we like them or not, those, we have our likes and dislikes when it comes to how things are done, right? Um, but I just thought the writing is the number one reason why this movie is just, like I say, not an Indiana Jones movie. It's like all the other movies that are like this, where they just slap stuff together, and because it's got a title to it, they think it's the real deal. I was very disappointed in this film. I went in there wanting to like it and giving it a chance, and then um, boy, it was even below my already low expectations. I really thought going into, you and I were going to be having this conversation tonight of, well, hey, was it as good as the Crystal Skull or not? Can we slip it above that and drop the Crystal down because Crystal had its issues? And now I look at that and go, Crystal Skull, I was wrong. You aren't the worst Indiana Jones movie, at least not anymore. So yeah,
Well,
that's pretty much what I had to say about it.
yeah.
What other
Well,
observations do you have?
final observations. He grabs a hat back in side through. Maybe there's another one, Rob. You'll have to watch. No, no. I thought, like I said, I don't think it's her show. As much as it's supposed to. She reminds Indy, I guess, and I guess the basically, quit fearing fire for himself, but also he also teaches her how to not be a bitch towards the end, because he reminds her, he's like, oh, it's all about fortune and glory, like he was in Temple of Doom. Remember, it was all fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory. That's what she was all about. Fortune and glory. She didn't give a shit about anybody else. But he points out, well, why do you have this kid down here? Why do you think? Why are you so nice on this kid?
Hmm.
I think you have a heart. And it kind of eats at her. That's why she, at the end, she realizes that this guy, she has she's 9 years old. Her godfather actually gives a shit about her, because she made a comment about it. He's like, you didn't give a shit about me. You haven't seen me since I was 9 years old. She actually gets off her high horse and steps down a little bit. That's why she doesn't want him to stay there. Not only would he fuck up time too.
Well,
More
they
than
should have done it at the beginning if that's the way
yeah,
they wanted to go, and they
but
obviously made their choices knowing what effect it
but
would have, I think.
but it doesn't help that the girl who plays Selena in real life is a piece of shit. But anyway, I gotta say,
Rank all
if
5, best to worst.
rank of five, man, because I don't want to be offensive. Because I personally, my favorites for me personally. Now, for those of you who love Temple of Doom, you're gonna hate me because I think Temple of Doom falls behind this movie a little bit. But it
So
can
what's
also,
number one?
it can also switch though. So it's not a flux list though. But my top, I tell you, my top is Raiders, and Temple and Doom in this movie trade places, and then but that's for three though. Here's my second movie in the row is Crusade. So it goes Raiders, Crusade, Temple, Doom, then this movie, or they can switch. Kingdom of Skulls, I will never watch again. I hate Shia LaBeouf. I thought the head were CGI. And I just, I don't care for the aliens and all
Right.
that crap. I mean, that should have been The Fate of Atlantis, which was a video game plus a book they wrote from Marvel, where he discovers Atlantis. That would have been much more entertaining than what the Spielberg and Lucas aliens. Uh,
Well, my ranking would be,
yeah,
even though I think Raiders is the original film, and it's still probably technically the best film out of the others, I'm going to put it at number one. But I would
they
say my favorite, which is a close number two, of course, is the third one. I think
yeah
that's really good.
they
And then
changed for me.
I
For
know,
me,
but it's one of those things where there's something about the magic of Connery being in there and just Venice and everything that just
yep,
it's funner. It's more fun to watch to me. But I still love them both. And a distant third, of course, would be Temple of Doom. There's an element of darkness to it, obviously, and some interesting things about it. Of course, nobody likes Kate Capshaw in it and some other things, so I understand it. And it'll be interesting to go through each of those at some point in the future. And of course, four, I think Curse of Skull's not good at all, but it felt like an Indiana Jones movie. And as much as nobody likes Mutt, the character and all that, at least it was somewhat appropriate what happened in the movie. And yeah, Alien seems kind of lame and stupid, and I do not disagree with you on that. Although it's not implausible for the time, choosing that as subject matter with the government and everything else there too, which yeah, it sounds silly, and Atlantis could have been interesting, perhaps, whatever. And then at a very, very low, distant five for me is this film. This is this is one of the worst things I've seen in a long time, even since the first 15, 20 minutes of Lord of the Rings, which, we don't come on and we're not one of those hate watch kind of channels. We actually try to look for what we like and don't like and compare it to other things too. And
If you love Lord of the Rings, you'll love this movie because Rob hates both.
well, I mean, I'm known as a guy that doesn't like anything, and that's certainly not true. We,
I
we,
know.
we have a big catalog of things that we love here, but this is probably the strongest difference of opinion you and I have had on any film that we've done here in 3-4 years. So
Yep.
it's interesting. I was not expecting out of this one. I was expecting a bit more, but hey, you know what? That's why we get together, and that's why we talk about it, because we just watch it, talk off the top of our head. We don't plan or promote anything ahead of
You
time. We
know,
just kind of just wing it and see what
I,
happens with
I
it.
look
So
forward
interesting.
to our next movie review, which I believe will be Mission Impossible, because that's coming out, right?
I think Mission Impossible is next weekend, and if it is, that will be our next review,
Yeah.
and that will be next Sunday night. Mission Impossible, you and I both have been loving a lot, and we expect good things from here. So it'll be interesting to see how well that does. Real quick, the last thing we'll talk about here with Raiders as we're signing off is obviously the last I checked, it's bombing big time financially. So regardless of where you like it or not, I think there's enough negative will out there that people are going to see it, and they did themselves
Yeah.
no favors by putting it schedule wise where it is. And even though it's been reshot and they spent a lot of money on it, it's going to be a financial flop, it appears, unless for some reason something happens this week with the 4th of July. But Disney, here in Central Florida, there's a lot of talk about politics and stuff's going on. And I think one of the biggest things people are upset about is not the experience at the theme parks, because that is what it is. It's the fact that they've just ruined all these franchises. And now you may disagree with that, and we're not really here to discuss that. I'm simply saying that this is going to be a big time loser for them, and I don't know if Disney will get around to changing what they do. So if we're to see any more indie or spinoffs or whatever like that, which they're prone to do, at some point they got to right the ship. But Bob Iger, he's just being stubborn about it. As long as he's got money, things like this are going to happen in a negative way. So if you like indie, you're probably going to end up seeing this film no matter what. It's, again, for me, very disappointing, and for RDV, obviously, you liked it a lot there too. So let us know what you guys think about it. Obviously, this is a very divisive movie out there. We want to like it, we want to give it the benefit of the doubt, so maybe we do, but
So
it's
far,
tough.
it opened with 60,000, actually no, 60 million so far, and since as of today, I guess during the box office mojo, it's at 82 million. Not sure what, and worldwide 152 million. So I'm not sure what the actual budget is for this. So
Ed's talking about Lord of the Rings as a masterpiece. I'm talking about Lord of the Rings, the
oh,
Amazon TV thing. That's what I'm talking about. The one that was like $1 billion or whatever. We even talked about, I think, the first episode maybe earlier here
so
on
it's but
the show.
right now it is falling. According to Forbes, it is falling short of the previous film. Like I said,
Yeah.
the biggest thing I think is people don't want to see an old Indiana Jones.
I think it's everything except that. I think they'd be more than willing to see somebody 70, 80 years old in a film as long as the film's good.
Yeah.
I would disagree on that. It's hard to see our heroes turn that way, and so they really had a chance in this movie because of all the goodwill they've had for the 40 years with that, and they wasted it in the first 10, 15 minutes, or at least by the way they made her the anchor of the film. So but you may be right. People may say
It's like Stallone going and doing another Rambo movie. Sure, you and I, because we're big things, but I don't. He's old, man. Him going around and do this stuff. It'd be it's.
But when Expendables comes out, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for popping in for a quick review of Indiana Jones 5. Hopefully you enjoyed it if that's your kind of thing, and if you watched it like some people do and report on it, that's fine. It's very hard when we're very up or down about a film to kind of keep that in check and kind of be a little more technical talking about it, which we are tonight. So we just wanted to hit on some of the high notes about it. Obviously, at some point in the future, we may do a deeper dive on that as well as the rest of the indie franchise, because we are big fans of that. We love Harrison Ford. I want to thank RDV for showing up. I know he's got some commitments he's getting ready to go to here now, so check his channel out. What would that name of that channel be, sir?
Geeky Puppet Show will be going live in 5 minutes. We'll be reading X-Men #3, and then stick around afterwards because we'll be reading Avengers #25 with Dr. Doom. So get Blob and Dr. Doom in one night.
That's correct. And don't forget Tuesday night, to be determined at this point here. RDV and I will be stepping in again and taking on something. And then next Sunday night should be Mission Impossible 7 Dead Reckoning Part 1, which means that implies a Part 2, but I think it's supposed to be its own different movie, not a 4-hour movie where it's split up into two. But who gives a shit? We'll talk about that next week. By that time, we can flush this evil that is 85 out of our system. And let's see how the reviews do. Maybe a week from now, we'll talk for a minute about how it got this massive turnaround, because it is the 4th of July holiday. It's super hot down here. It's high 90s in Central Florida. And guys out there, make sure that you always see them. Let them see you sweat. All right, guys. Have a good night. As always, stay extreme.
Hey guys.
Time to come home,
Happy
John.
4th.
Yeah, happy 4th of July, everybody. Enjoy.